So I'm just going to take a guess and say every one of you who's seeing this has seen some diagram like this at some point in the last couple years, specifically over the last few months. Everybody is talking about the eclipse, the April 8th eclipse, the 2017, the Great American Eclipse, and everyone is talking about the red heifer sacrifice in Israel, as well as the Gaza-Hamas war. However, nobody is explaining how they connect and translating the biblical prophecies that led us to this point. And that is what I am going to attempt to do. Now, as I get into this, I'm going to start throwing the verses out and explaining and translating for you so that you can go do your own research and verify what I'm telling you, whether it's true or false. This is stuff that God has been unpacking for me really my whole life. It's only culminating now as I understand what it all means and how it all comes together. It's all been time locked where I wouldn't understand what was being said until things started to happen and be presented to me. So I'm going to start with the Great American Eclipse and turn the whole thing upside down. Literally, actually, let's look at it upside down. Most people cut out this part of the eclipse, the one that happened in 2023, 3 days after Sukkot, actually, which, if you understand the biblical feast days, that's actually pretty important, but we'll get to that later. If you look at this whole set of eclipses, you get an upside down bowl with the horns here and the head here. That's an Aleph. An ancient pictograph Aleph looks like this. Now, the Aleph represents the power, the authority, the strength. I accidentally cut off my picture up here, but you can see it down in this corner, the ox head, and then translate that over to... It's pretty blatant in that sense. Now, this is going to blow some minds. I'll prove it later. The land of America, the North America, as well as Canada, but primarily North America, was the primary gathering point and collecting point of the 10 tribes of Israel that were dispersed throughout the world that Paul and the disciples were chasing and feeding the gospel to. Again, there's a lot of information that most of the Jewish rabbis actually know this, they just hide it. But the ox head was also symbolic of the tribe of Ephraim. Ephraim was known as the bull. So you have a marker that is referring to the judgment of America with a correlation of a bull and an ox head, the strength and authority. The interesting point is where we cross down here in the south in Texas. Both of these final two eclipses cross roughly over Houston, Texas. Now, this stuff's going to blow your mind. It says in this article, referring to where these calves came from. One of them came from just outside Houston. The other 4 came from Triple Creek Ranch in Rockwall. Where is Rockwall? Rockwall is right by Dallas. The wild part of this eclipse set is both places that sent heifers to Israel have or will see one of these eclipses. So with Houston down here by the coast, Houston got the 2023 eclipse, and Dallas being up here, Rockwall gets it. Why? That is a huge key here. It's actually looking like the rabbis may do the sacrifice on or around April 8th. They are likely going to perform this sacrifice before Passover this year. And that is alarming for some very key reasons that I'm going to get into starting now. Because a lot of people are going to have huge issue with this interpretation because they have been told for their whole lives as Christians that this sacrifice will usher in the millennial reign of the Messiah. I've heard it myself 1,000,001 times. I'm about to tell you, I'm going to blow your mind. Watch. Okay, to understand why these two things are connected, we have to go back to Numbers chapter 19 when the first red heifer sacrifice command is given. This is God talking to Moses, and the first stipulation is that the red heifer shall be given to Eleazar the priest, Aaron's son. So a lineage of Aaron has to be the one sacrificing this calf. It's got to be in the lineage of Aaron. It can't just be a Jew. It can't be anyone other than one of Aaron's sons, unless there's another stipulation on that later. But as of now, it also has to be outside the camp. And then get this. Check this. I'm going to move myself up over here. Sprinkle some of the blood 7 times directly in front of the tabernacle of meeting, or the tent of meeting. At this time, the tabernacle, the place where they went to receive oracles from God, was the tabernacle in the wilderness, the mobile temple. When the temple was built, that became the tabernacle. Okay, are you following me? Now, this isn't the best description of this concept, but you can find this in other sources as well. In Hebrew, the Hebrew mindset, or not only Hebrew, but the whole Eastern way of thinking, the Semitic way, is that east is the beginning or the front of a thing, and west is the back, which is, I mean, if you look at the basic setup of creation, it makes perfect sense. The sun enters our realm from the east. We begin seeing it in the east. It enters the gates of the sky in the east, and it departs in the west. The west is the back, the east is the front. Okay. Why is this important? Because, check this out. The proposed location, it's not proposed anymore. They actually have the altar built on the Mount of Olives. Sorry. My bad. This one. The location for the ritual is particularly significant, with the ceremony slated to take place on the Mount of Olives, overlooking the historic site of the Temple Mount. So wait a minute. Currently, the Temple Mount is owned, or the Al-Aqsa Mosque is parked on top of that. Why is that important for right now? The Mount of Olives is the mountain to the east of the Temple Mount, overlooking it. So when you go back to the Numbers 19 stipulation, check this out. They are to sprinkle the blood 7 times towards the tabernacle, the front of the tabernacle. So they're on the east of the Temple Mount, performing this ritual, they're claiming, and they're telling you this, the people performing this ritual are not stupid. They know this language. They are lying to your face. This ritual is not to cleanse and purify the future temple. They are cleansing and purifying the current thing that is on that mountain, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. They are performing this red heifer ceremony not for the temple. They are performing it to confirm the Al-Aqsa Mosque as the tabernacle of God. And wait till we get into the prophecy about this, guys. The word given in Daniel chapter 12 for setting up the abomination of desolation is not set up. The word is talal, which comes from the root natan, to give over, to entrust, to deliver up. They are delivering up the Temple Mount to Islam, to the king of death that rules over them and will descend on the Temple Mount, on that place.